Well, thank you very much, and good evening. I am honored that you would come out tonight for a variety of reasons. One is that I'm not nearly as interesting as the other two speakers you have coming up later this year, Referee and New York City Port Authority. And secondly, because I have been in Hot Springs Village for a grand total of 5 hours, and I've already seen how many cool things there are to do, how many distractions there are on any night, including a Tuesday night. And so thank you very much for coming. And also thank you for coming to hear about what is a very heavy topic. I mean, I admit, this is a tough thing. But I hope you agree it is something that we all need to be aware of, that this exists. This problem of modern-day slavery, of child trafficking, child exploitation, is almost too much to even think about. That this exists in the year 2017 in the United States of America and around the world. You know, we've talked about it a little bit tonight. I had the fortune of meeting with some of you, and I'm just so grateful to Tom and Jean Bryant for their hospitality, for Susan McCarty and others on the Ouachita Speaker Series. So grateful that anti-trafficking warriors, you have in your midst right now some anti-trafficking warriors, whether they be on the law enforcement side of Hot Springs and Hot Springs Village Police Departments, Garland County Sheriffs, officials in Saline County as well, and also those working the aftercare, the rehabilitation side. So grateful to know that there are men and women who are dedicated to fighting this cause, because this exists everywhere. You throw a dart at a map or spin the globe and cover your eyes and put your finger down wherever it stops, and there are children being exploited. There are girls mostly, but also boys, being exploited for purposes of commercial sex or forced labor. But fortunately, there are groups out there, many groups who are fighting this. There are many groups on the front end holding conferences, raising awareness. Education and prevention are the programs that they lead. That is so vital, because that's the long-term solution to this problem. That some say it's been going on forever, right? The world's oldest profession. Well, this idea of trafficking, this idea of exploitation is something that is a little bit newer than that, but has been going on for a long time. But those groups on the front end are doing such vital work. And then on the back end, the vital work of restoration and rehabilitation. Once these kids are rescued, getting them back to the life that God surely had intended for them is even more vital. However, what Operation Underground Railroad saw, that there were very few groups who were dedicated to physically going in and extracting these kids from the hell in which they're living, and then getting them back to their families when possible. But a lot of times that's not possible because the family members are the ones who have sold their kids into this for whatever reason, or they're orphans, or it's too dangerous in their neighborhood. In those cases, you get them into these safe houses. So we are partnering with many groups, and because we are not a vigilante organization, we only go in through the front door, or we don't go in at all. We have to have official invitations. We have to get in front of people and explain the tools that we have. And it's a little bit that we'll do for tonight. We'll focus a little bit on the international side and what we've done, but we'll also talk domestically. And we'll talk about tools that we have if there's interest among Hot Springs Village, Garland, Saline, and others in these areas. But first I want to introduce you a little bit to our organization. As you may have read in the program, I've had a very, very blessed life, an amazing opportunity to live or to serve my country, as I know many of you have. And those of you in the military, my hat's off to you. Much braver than I am and was. Very much appreciate your service. I was fortunate for 12 years to serve in the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. I worked for Republicans and Democrats, and as I joked, there were good people and bozos in one party and good people and bozos in the other party. And so it's not a political statement, but I made the decision to actually give up my government career, to actually give up a government pension that would have been waiting for me in just 8 years' time, to take a huge pay cut, give up government health care. Say what you want about the arguments going on in Washington now for health care. U.S. government employees get probably the best health care in the country. My father thought I was insane. Do you realize how few companies even offer pensions anymore? My wife thought I was crazy. Honey, I love you. I support you. Are you sure you want to give up a job where Uncle Sam pays you faithfully twice a month and join an organization where you only get paid if the donations come in? I said, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. She said, well, this is obviously a call for you. And so we prayed about it. We really thought long and hard, and we decided to do this. And the reason is this idea of a cause. And I just have a few slides, and then we'll show some videos. The great Protestant clergyman Harry Emerson Fosdick in the early 19th century said this, and I will slightly change it to keep it a little more inclusive and a little more politically correct. He said, men and women will work hard for money. They'll work hard for other people. But they'll work hardest of all when they're dedicated to a cause. And I love this. Until willingness overflows obligation, they fight as conscripts rather than following the flag as patriots. Operation Underground Railroad is formed mostly of former government officials, former military. Not because there is anything wrong with our government jobs, far from it. These were the most amazing jobs we could ever have hoped for. And I have nothing but respect for public servants who are still in the fight with the U.S. government at the federal, state, and local levels. But for us, it was a little bit more, and I'll explain to you about the founder's idea, Tim Ballard. But because everyone's knowledge and experience with human trafficking is a little bit different, I wanted to throw up some numbers that may stun you. It's very difficult to get exact figures. 2 million is a number that UNICEF puts out there. Children under the age of 18 held in sex slavery, commercial sex, forced to pimp themselves out. When I was with the CIA, and I will share with you that when I was overseas, I was still with the CIA, even though a lot of it was under the cover of the U.S. Department of State. In 2006 in Spain, I worked and wrote the Trafficking in Persons Report. That's a report that the State Department puts out every year to name and shame, to provide grades to countries on how they're doing in the fight against trafficking. And I was very nervous, and I went in front of this Minister of Interior in Spain, and my Spanish was so bad, and I was a first tour officer. And I said, sir, in Spanish, on behalf of the U.S. government, we're here to inform you that Spain and Madrid, where I was, have a trafficking problem. And he said, Senor, we know the traffic here is very difficult. We have people on the highways, and it's cloudy, and just, come in the summertime. Everyone leaves. The traffic is good there. I said, no, sir, a human trafficking problem. We've identified this brothel, this truck stop posing as a brothel. This is another, what you might call, again, the red light district here. He says, oh, okay, sir, I understand what you're saying. These are prostitutes. Have you ever seen the movie Pretty Woman, he asked me. I said, yes, sir, I've seen the movie Pretty Woman. He said, well, that's the Julia Roberts character. You are a U.S. diplomat. I am a Spanish government official. She is a prostitute. He had no concept, just as I admit I had no concept when I started, that the percentage of men and women and girls and boys who are pimping themselves out, choosing to do this, is minuscule. And the amount of individuals who are being trafficked, who are being exploited, is astronomical. Now, is the number 2,000? That I don't know. And I'll tell you some other numbers here. Every year, and this is actually slide, every year 800,000 are at risk. These are FBI numbers. 800,000 in the U.S. are at risk of being drawn into the sex slave industry. And we'll talk a little more about this in a minute. But look at this number here. United Nations, currently 27 million labor and sex slaves. Sex slavery is actually just the smallest part. The largest part of slavery and slaves are forced labor, indentured servitude. Think about the U.S. in the 1800s. And so as we talk about here in our motto is that, and think about this here, these numbers. The best numbers we have from the Transatlantic Slave Institute out in San Diego is when you started tracking in early 1500s when the first slave ships left Africa for the New World, up until the Emancipation Proclamation, the Civil War in our country, in the late 1800s, they estimate about 12.5 million slaves total. Now, granted, the population was a lot smaller, but think about that with that number there, and then now going back here, currently 27 million, and that could be a conservative number. U.S. Department of State estimates 23 million. United Nations, 27 million. Polaris Project, a non-governmental organization that fights trafficking and raises awareness, says 35 million. Slavery did not end with Lincoln. And I don't know what the numbers are, But all I know is that since I left the CIA in the summer of 2014, I've led around 7 rescue operations, 8 rescue operations with Operation Underground Railroad. And just being a tourist, just being an American, a Westerner, a face that looks like this or any other male face in this room, has a tendency to attract these greedy traffickers who will come up and will approach. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about how we do this and why we do this. And I'm going to introduce you to my boss and founder, Tim Ballard. Tim Ballard and I went to graduate school in the year 2000. He then started off at the CIA and later worked for U.S. Customs, was on the U.S. California-Mexico border, going after drug traffickers, gun runners, kidnappers, extortionists. He was doing a lot of good work. Well, he was asked to start up a child sex crimes unit. And in a minute, I'll play a short video where he introduces himself and tells you why he started this. But he was very frustrated with the bureaucracy, not frustrated with his government job, frustrated with the bureaucracy and issues of jurisdiction. He could only go after kids and work a case if there was a U.S. tie, if there was a U.S. nexus. Was the kid American? Was the bad guy American? Was money passing through U.S. banks? Would this case end up in a U.S. court of law? If the answer to that was no, he couldn't go after this case. His bosses were sympathetic. They said, Tim, I know you just took down this American pedophile in Guatemala and you rescued this American kid whose parents have been looking for him from California. And I know you see 2 other illegal orphanages where there's 60 kids there by conservative count, but we don't have the resources. We can't do it. So he thought, what if I leave the U.S. government and yet work with the U.S. government as a force multiplier, giving the government what he didn't have, abundant resources, training, technology, and undercover operators. And we decided to work overseas first because that's where the need is the greatest. And little by little, we've started working in the U.S. And one motto that he always used was from Thoreau. And again, talking about these different groups and how we all are trying now to strike at the root of this problem. So he had this idea, and he worked with a guy named Gerald Mullen, who was an Academy Award-winning producer of Schindler's List and Jurassic Park. I don't know if you remember the movie Schindler's List. Gerald Mullen said, and he met Tim through just sort of happenstance or maybe divine intervention or what, just mere coincidence. And Gerald Mullen said, you know, it was interesting after Schindler's List came out, how many people came up and said, I didn't realize that was going on in the 1940s. I didn't really understand the genocide and the Holocaust. And so Jerry said, well, that's kind of hard to believe, but we'll take them at their word. However, there's this modern-day slavery, an atrocity that's going on right now. So let's do something now. Let's make a movie now about something that we actually can do something about. And so you think about Harriet Beecher Stowe and Uncle Tom's Cabin, using entertainment, using mass media back then to support a cause. And so Gerald Mullen and a Hollywood film crew followed Tim around on his first few operations. And they used undercover cameras, and they followed, and they filmed it as is. If any of you have seen the documentary or want to look at it, it's called The Abolitionists. And you'll see not all the rescues are successful. Even though it's a Hollywood production, this is the real deal. This is real life. And sometimes things don't always go the way we want. But based on this idea of Uncle Tom's Cabin, they put on a movie called The Abolitionists that started last May, and now it's available on DVD. And so I'm going to play a quick movie clip. It's the long form of the trailer. But what's neat is you'll see Tim giving his introduction on why he founded OUR, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we do these operations and what the results have been.
Tim Ballard has one mission: to track down child traffickers. 4 months ago, Colombian authorities asked him to investigate a tip that children were being sold there as sex slaves.
Within a half hour, this individual walks up to me, starts asking me what I'm here for, what I want, and within minutes, he says, well, I've got kids as young as 11 years old.
Ballard, a former Homeland Security agent, now heads up Operation Underground Railroad, a nonprofit group that rescues trafficked kids. After that first meeting, the Colombians asked him to put together a sting.
No men will be in here, only women.
Operation Underground Railroad spent months planning, renting this house, rigging it with hidden cameras to document the crime, coordinating with Colombian authorities, and negotiating with the traffickers.
How they find these kids is they lure them in by pretending to have a modeling agency. They target them at 9 or 10 years old. And they were telling us that about by 11, they're ready for sex. They're ready to be sold.
What is that like, looking into that kind of person's eyes?
It's horrifying, and this is why. Because I've got a smile in the face of evil. This is the table where we're going to do the negotiation.
Less than 24 hours after the operatives landed, the suspected traffickers arrived on the island, and the final deal with the undercover team began. 54 boys and girls aged 11 to 18 were ushered in for what had been billed as a sex party. They were given candy and drinks and told to wait in this small room.
This little 11-year-old boy, I remember, he asked one of my operatives if they could give him some cocaine or something. He said, they usually give me something because I'm really scared.
By the time the deal was done, the alleged traffickers were set to make $25,000. That transaction was never completed. 25 Colombian special operatives stormed the party, arresting 5 suspects, 4 men and 1 former beauty queen, all charged with child trafficking. The victims, 29 of whom are under 18, were evacuated, given medical exams, and placed in a rehabilitation center where specialists are working to undo the damage.
Right before I got in the boat, we had to walk by this room where the kids were, and they put their hand up. And I touched their hand and see that there's liberation now.
Liberating one child at a time. Elaine Quijano, CBS News, New York.
Is the Abolitionist movie, and it's again goes and covers several of our rescues. A few things from there, and again, you see the passion of Tim Ballard. You see his dedication, commitment. You could probably see how he talked me out of a really good government job. You know, a few things, and you may be thinking what I thought when I first saw these things and what I still think when I'm sitting across the table from someone who is selling me a child. Not for me, I don't play the pedophile. We don't play the pedophiles to protect ourselves. We play the middleman for these wealthy Americans or wealthy Westerners. I'm sure you're thinking, how can this happen? I have kids, I have grandkids, maybe even great-grandkids. How is this possible? Well, the simple fact is that it is, and it happens, and it's very, very sad. And unfortunately, like so many things in the United States and around the world, the number one consumer of child pornography is the same as the number one producer of child pornography, and that's the United States of America. And the country that sends the most child sex tourists abroad is the United States of America, followed closely by Canada and then a few countries in Western Europe. It's this developed world, and so many people think, why is that? I don't have the answer. Some of you, I know, have more expertise, but I've seen that a lot of it is pornography. People get into pornography. It starts with a Playboy magazine and then Penthouse and a video and goes on before it has to be violent. It has to be children. And then people have these proclivities and they act on them. They act on it in the United States and they go around the world to act on it. And that's why this idea of this sting operation, playing the role of these American tourists going over, has worked so far, you know, knock on wood, right? Many people say, well, how can you come and do these types of presentations and go on the media, even though you're trying to raise awareness and get the word out? How can you do this without fearing that someone's going to turn on you or your MO will be out there and that they'll know? Well, just think, how many years have we been fighting the war on drugs? And yet drug traffickers continue to sell, continue to push. That's the same with children. So a few things. Now, again, mostly I'll focus on overseas, and then towards the end we'll touch on the U.S. In the best of all cases, the governments who invite us in already know where the red light districts are, the traffickers, the kids, but they can't get close because they don't have the American face. Or maybe they don't have the resources or the training, and we can provide that. We only work with vetted units of the U.S. Embassy. So we meet with the U.S. Embassy. I had a lot of contacts still from the CIA and State Department. Tim had a lot from Homeland Security. Overseas, we only work with the federal forces because that's your best bet at having efficient and non-corrupt individuals. Here in the U.S., we work with all three levels, federal, state, and local. But overseas, we go first to the U.S. Embassy. Who are your vetted forces? Oh, well, this unit's been trained in Quantico. This unit's been polygraphed. This unit stay away from because of corruption or because of human rights violations. Then we go in and we spend weeks sometimes talking diplomat to diplomat, getting all of the permission ready. And then we actually send our undercover operators in. What I'm going to show you now is an operation we did last year in Cancun, Mexico. I'm sure many people, Cancun, it's a wonderful place. It is. I've gone with my family. You may have gone. I'd highly recommend you go there still. No need to fear Cancun. Our guys went to Cancun looking for this crud, okay? So that's why we found it. However, it is amazing at how just by spending time on the beach, hanging out in the discotheque, walking the streets, we don't approach them. We're very careful about laws of entrapment, even in some of these countries where you can get away with a lot. We never say, hey, do you have kids? Do you have kids? We just wait and they come up. And it always happens this way. Hey, gringo, you want a beer? You want a margarita? I'm all right. You want to go jet ski ride, parasail, horses, horseback ride? I'm okay. You want some drugs? No, I'm good. Want some girls? Well, it depends. What do you have? Oh, I've got great 22, 23, 24-year-old. Okay. Anything else? Anything special? We have older girls, younger girls. Some of our bosses kind of have some crazy tastes. I see what you... okay, I think I know. So the local guy on the beach makes a phone call. Within an hour, someone will show up. And they're either the trafficker or they have the ties. And pretty soon, after just a couple hours, just listening, we know already names, faces. We've seen the girls. Mexican authorities and other foreign agencies with whom we've worked have said, your group of clowns, essentially, your group of Americans can go in, and even though these guys are highly trained, many of them are still current law enforcement who work on contract with us, many retired, lots of years of experience undercover. Within 2 or 3 days, we have more than that country's law enforcement could get in a year because these guys suspect nothing when they see this face. They give us their phone numbers, their real names, their IDs. They'll say, hey, can you Western Union $200 to me so I can get everything ready? Yeah, but, I'm going to need your name and address and your ID. And all. Okay, here you go. They just give it to us. Then the local cops spend time putting the case together, intercepts of the phones a lot of times, building out the networks, making sure they know who's who. And then they invite us back a couple weeks later because the traffickers trust us. And we go through everything and have it all planned, very well choreographed. What you're about to see now, Operation Maya in Cancun. Just a quick montage showing the anatomy of an operation. You'll see our Americans going out. Then you'll see us meeting with a suspected trafficker in a public place, a food court. We don't carry weapons, and that's a little bit dangerous for us. So we have to reduce our risk as much as possible. We meet in public places. We get the information. We record it with undercover cameras. We have some technology, again, thanks to this Hollywood film crew, better than what I had in the CIA. Sunglasses, watches, an Aquafina water bottle. Imagine right now if we're talking across the table and I just put my water bottle down and we're talking and it's recording everything. It's pretty impressive. Headphones, you just stick your headphones out of your pocket. Is there anything alerting about that? Backpacks and camelbacks. So, then after we get this information from the suspected trafficker, the Mexicans in this case flew their best team in from Mexico City so as not to use even the federal forces working in Cancun in that area who might have been corrupted already by criminal groups. We briefed them, well, here's the names of the traffickers, here are the number of girls, here's the price. And so you'll hear me in my bad Spanish, hopefully you can read the subtitles, but I'll explain to you. Then after we hear everything and we get their buy-in that yes, we're going to do this case, but we have to see the girls. We tell the traffickers, that they've tricked us in the past and they said they have girls and they haven't. We need to see the girls. They bring them out to a little mall, and outside the mall we're looking and confirming ages. Now I want you to notice a couple things from this video. We protect all the faces of the victims and we protect all the faces of the cops. We don't protect the faces of the traffickers here. You're going to see a couple individuals who you think are victims, you think are 15, 16 years old. They were traffickers themselves, 17 and 18 years old, pimping out their younger sisters and their younger sisters' friends. Then you'll see our jump team come in. And Tim Ballard, you'll see him briefly, and he'll lead everybody in a prayer. We say we're non-denominational, non-partisan. We have many faiths represented in our group, and just amazing people, even of no faith, who say, I know the difference between right and wrong. We don't want to offend anyone or exclude anyone. Well, we always pray before our operations because we do everything we can to make sure we have everything in order, and then in the end, we leave it up to the big guy. And we've actually pulled out a lot of times when we just haven't felt the Spirit be there and we just haven't felt that it was right. But anyways, we say the prayer. Then we set the house as if it was a birthday party. We write in Spanish, Happy Birthday, Maria. And why is that? Because we've already gotten the federal authorities from Mexico City. We've gotten their approval. They're in with us. They're ready. But what if a neighbor says, why are these 16, 14, and 15-year-olds walking into this house with these Americans? I'm going to call the cops. Well, then that would ruin it. So no, it's a birthday party. It's a quinceañera, if some of you know from Latin American cultures, right? 15 years old. And then we go out. We never tell the traffickers where we're staying for our own security. So we meet them about a mile away, have them all come together. We buy the girls some milkshakes, ice cream to calm them down because they're very, very scared. The only images you'll see are a few girls in one car who are kind of smiling. The other two cars were very disturbing. These girls were crying because they knew what was going to happen. If this was a real deal, these girls were going to be getting raped for 4 to 6 hours by about 15 large Americans. I'm by far the weakest guy on our team. I'm a toothpick. You have some of these big, Navy SEALs and Special Forces, and these poor girls think, what is these guys going to do to me? So we give the girls some milkshakes. We confirm their ages. All this we're recording for evidence for the Mexicans. Then you'll see the girls come in. We have a pat down, make sure no one gets any weapons in. We get the girls upstairs. You'll see them briefly run upstairs. No men are in that area because, again, these girls are traumatized. We bring a few females of our team just so it's females with females, and they say, let's just relax, have a soft drink, have some chips, listen to some music. And we tell the traffickers, you tell the girls, do not do anything until we're ready. Because we don't want some of the girls, even who are more professional or been doing this a long time, thinking, okay, I know what I have to do to make money, and they start taking their clothes off. We don't want that. So we say, tell these girls to just sit tight until the bosses are all ready, because we know they're never going to get to that point. Then you'll see the negotiation. Pay close attention. It's between half and half, English and Spanish, because a lot of these guys had lived illegally in the United States. So we had to speak to them a little bit in English, but then we had to get most of the evidence in Spanish. So I'm thinking, no, help me practice my Spanish. It's very bad. I don't want to speak. And so we're going over the money. Look at the greed. These guys are focused on the money on the table. There are cameras all over the place. They have no idea they're being filmed. And then watch one little dynamic where the traffickers see two of the girls come to the table and they say, we should ask these girls to leave. I said, what do you mean to leave? We should ask these girls to leave. Well, we knew what they were doing. The prosecutor said you have to have at least 2 victims over seeing the money and listening to the conversation so that they can talk later to the cops and tell them what they saw. Well, the traffickers did not want the girls there because the traffickers were charging us $500 per girl, and the girl at most was going to make $20 to $25 for being raped by multiple men for many hours. So they said, we want the girls to leave. So then the signal for the cops to come in is tequila. Hey, waiter, let's order the tequila. And the rest, I believe, will be self-explanatory. Creo que tenemos confirmado, yo tengo aquí primero lo de Chucho y Gaspar, ¿ok? Los dos, ¿ok? Nos dijeron, seguro, 8 o 9, ¿ok? Entonces, de las edades, según ellos, 15 a 16, ¿ok? El precio, nos hemos puesto de acuerdo, $500 cada mujer, ¿ok? $500 por las 4 horas.
Pero no sé qué problemas tuvieron y no tuvieron problemas. Pero pues él ya vio que no van a comprar. Sin falta. ¿Cuánto fue? Sin falta. Yo sin falta. 8 o 9. Creo que son 9. Sí, 9. Dame un número exacto. 9. Mañana. Sin falta. 16. 15. 15.
Y esos 3 aquí, porque no quiero llamar la atención.
Me gusta. Esto es para allá. Ellos tienen 10, ellos son, creo que son 16, pero
Nah,
20.
¿Está bien?
Uno, pero ella era de Colombia.
Sí.
Por eso, uno de los
Es que
hijos
ellos
quería.
quieren...
Tenía las dos venezolanas.
Sí, pero su precio era muy elevado. Ya te imaginarás en cuánto le están cobrando ellos.
¿Estamos listos? Ah, dale. Bueno, dígame sus nombres. Stephanie. ¿Y cuántos años tienes? 15.
Atala.
Atala. ¿Y cómo? 15.
Esmeralda.
Esmeralda. ¿Cuánto? 16. Angie. Ah. 16. Julia. ¿Cuántos años tienes? 16. Está bien.
Feliz cumpleaños, Sati.
Feliz año, feliz año. Awesome job, buddy. Feliz año. Va a haber aquí cacheo, entonces, por favor. Tenemos mucho dinero, otras personas. Entonces, aquí yo empecé con los sobres, ¿ok? Está bien, pero yo quiero que ustedes cuenten. Entonces, ¿ese es el grupo de quién? De Chucho and Gaspar? Pero como desconozco, so you go with him to count. Okay, so we have here for Manuel, dice Manuel, Jesús, Chucho, Gaspar, nuestros amigos aquí. Entonces vamos a contar.
We should have the females to leave now. Yeah.
The what?
These two females right here. We have them to leave.
To leave.
Yeah, to leave. I mean to go to inside.
Ah, okay. Okay, perdón. Okay, ¿ustedes pueden decir en español? Okay. All right. So we'll count. So for you, so cuenta. And then let's get, you know, I forgot, Brian? I forgot la tequila. I forgot the tequila. Tell her tequila. Nos han engañado mucho, ¿ok? En el pasado. Por eso, siempre pagamos 50% primero y en 4 horas. No solamente tendrán ustedes 50% más, pero mucho dinero. McCubbins, show us how much money you got right now. ¿Ok? Y entonces, confía, ¿ok? Confía en nosotros, ¿ok? No hay ningún problema. Show them how much money. ¿Ah? Okay. Que no habrá ningún problema. Pero, las chicas están dispuestas a hacer. ¿Qué, por ejemplo? ¿Qué? No queremos malentendidos.
Yo contigo ya hablé lo que se va a hacer.
Sí, con tus o con sus chicas, pero por ejemplo, las colombianas.
Vamos a hablar. They down to do everything.
Y de verdad. No me duele. Okay. Okay. Heads down, no talking. Gracias por todo. Espero poder otras oportunidades de colaborar con ustedes por el bien de la niñez mexicana. So that operation was a success, and we were there from the very beginning. And what's great is we don't go into a place unless we have the aftercare already laid out with vetted and pre-screened facilities. And again, it doesn't always work perfectly, and we're learning, but that was great because we had a lot of our shelters in Mexico City ready to go. And some of the girls were able to go back to their parents. Some of the Colombians, actually, there were 3 Colombians, 2 I think were able to go back to Colombia. 1 wasn't. That situation was more dangerous for her back in Medellin than it was in Mexico. But a couple things there is I wish you could have seen the faces of the Mexican police at the end and their SWAT teams when we were shaking hands and hugging. You know, again, their face is most important for them because of the criminals they're going up against and the drug traffickers. But some of them had tears in their eyes, and one pulled me aside and he said, you know, since I've been working for the Mexican Federal Police, I can't tell you how many kilos of cocaine I've seized, how many marijuana, plants and plantations I've taken out, how many crops I've fumigated. But to save a child, that's something I've never been able to do. And what's really neat is this OUR model, the Operation Underground Railroad model, allows us to train up, and then these people and cops go and do this on their own. So we've done a total of 3 operations in Mexico, all against American pedophiles and rings. And we have worked in Acapulco and Cancun and Los Cabos. But the Mexicans themselves, this unit, have done another 7 to 10 operations on their own. And so it's really neat to see using our training, using our technology. And from time to time, they'll have our gringo faces back to help them. It's what a few of my guys and I did in Mexico City just over the weekend, just to kind of help them move things along. Another thing you see is we do get arrested. Well, you know what? Even though the cops know about it and the prosecutors know about it, and the bad guys will also know about it in a day or two once they've talked to their lawyers, but we cannot let the bad guys know we're in on it when it first happens. We're very vulnerable. We're in their territory once we're down on the ground. That's why apologies. You heard some, bad words flying around. We're yelling at each other. What happened? Trying to create confusion until we get out. So my family thinks it's funny that I've been arrested now in about 3 or 4 different countries. And I'll forget, my first operation was in Colombia, and I had never done anything like this before. And my wife told me beforehand, she said, you think you're so cool. You worked with the CIA for so many years. This will be the hardest thing you've ever done. I said, no, I can go to my happy place. I can compartmentalize. The first time I'm sitting across the table from this monster in Cartagena, Colombia, and he brings these 2 precious girls out, and he says in Spanish, this one's 12 and this one's 13, and they have 0 kilometers on them. They're virgins. And it's a special gift for this Pablo, who was going to come visit. Right then, I simultaneously wanted to throw up. I wanted to punch the guy, strangle him, and yet I had to stay in character. And I had to lick my lips and say, oh yeah, the boss man's going to love this. And right away, my wife's words came back to me. This will be the hardest thing you've ever done. And it was. And so we came up with this thing on the spot. I wish I would have thought about it. It wasn't my idea. One of my partners said to the guy, okay, we'll pay your price as long as they're still virgins in 2 weeks. And we have ways of knowing that. And if you even do anything, we're not paying. And he said, I will protect these 2 girls for 2 weeks. And he did. And we got to him. And so we all got arrested and the whole thing. Well, that was on a Saturday. And so I got home by Sunday night. It was my first operation for OUR. And I was talking to my wife. And my daughters at the time were, I think, 8 and 11. They're 12 and 15 now. So I guess I didn't realize that little pitchers have big ears. And my 8-year-old was hearing it. Because the next day, we get a call from the principal. The principal says, yes, your daughter Grace was in show and tell today and talking about what people did over the weekend. And said, my daddy got arrested in Colombia on Saturday. So we had to quickly kind of tamp that down. So in the time we have remaining, I just want to show 2 more short videos, and one is on the aftercare. And this is something, too, we talked already to some of the aftercare experts in this area who are in the room tonight. And just to throw out, too, that we also have a good part of our donations, a good part of the funds that we're able to collect, go to our rehabilitation, whether we have saved the children or not. We want to empower great organizations. And you're going to see a quick little video, and it's actually really cool. We've got some doTERRA reps and supporters here. doTERRA's been an amazing supporter for us, and we do from time to time little rehabilitation trips. And so this is was in Uganda. And I just want you to see kind of some of the joy of these kids. And I want you to you'll meet our director for aftercare, Jessica Mass, who does an incredible job. Has done foster parent for many years. And she feels this so much. I'm just this rescue guy, right? And Tim will admit, when he was with Homeland Security, and it's nothing bad against Homeland Security or law enforcement, but a lot of times the focus is on the rescue, then the prosecution, and then we rely on experts to help with the rehab. Well, this is a home in Uganda who does just that. And so you'll learn a little bit about some of what we do and the happy news that comes with these girls once they've been arrested or rescued.
Some of the things that we've done so far is painting the aftercare home. So the girls' bedrooms, we painted them and redid them so that when they come home, they're going to come home to these beautiful new rooms. Right now they're at boarding school and they get home in just a few days. So we're super excited about that. We actually did a training where we partner with local Ugandan people so that we can provide a training to all the social workers, counselors, some of them are professors, so a wide variety of group that we brought here together to do a training. And we are working with survivors of trafficking that are learning sewing skills, they are learning how to bead, they are learning hairdressing. So there's all these different skills and vocational training that are empowering them so that they will then be able to go on and have different types of careers. Some of the survivors have had children and we are interacting with the babies and just pouring into them.
So being on this other side to see the care and the treatment that they're receiving, it gives me hope because I realize that they're getting the support that they need.
It's been really neat to see that even though we can't change the whole world, we can make a difference in the quality of some people's lives.
It's just been very, very humbling for me to be a part of this and to be here and to work side by side with these guys and see the changes that are happening and the good that they are doing.
There's a ton of angels out there that are dedicating their life to this, and it really brings hope and just to see the love. God is everywhere in this world.
I wouldn't call this a fun trip, but I would call it an incredible trip.
Many have asked us over the past year or two, well, what are you doing in the United States? I mean, the need is here, and you're soliciting funds and support and raising awareness among Americans. What are we doing here? And so for a variety of reasons, mostly a compliment already to the men and women in law enforcement and prosecutors here, that they're already, as I mentioned, light years ahead. And also because of the laws, the chain of custody of evidence and the threshold for convictions is so much higher here than other countries. They don't need us here in this country to do what you've seen, to play the bad guys, the middlemen. Although in some states and some smaller jurisdictions, they have been allowed to hire some of our folks. They actually hire, it just means make it official. They don't pay us anything. We bring in our resources. But what we do, and what I would also offer to this area in the weeks and months and years to come, if there's interest, is that we have resources. We have money that can get places quickly. I remember a lot of times when I was in the government, it would take me 2 and 3 weeks to run up requests through my chain of command for $2,000 for this, $3,000 for this. If the local law enforcement units are able to accept money from outside donors, we can get that to them. And outside organizations, we can get it very quickly. Another thing, training and technology. We have experts contracted through OUR that are experts on the dark web, experts on this anti-child pornography software that tracks the peer-to-peer files being shared, that can track actual computers traveling, with a predator to different countries. These are the types of things we can do, but slowly but surely we're starting to expand. We've been successful in California, in Washington State, in Arizona, looking now at Texas, would love to expand into Arkansas. Whatever the needs are, we're here. And a quick video here just gives you an idea, but as you'll see, you'll hear from district attorneys, you'll hear from inspectors, from police, and others who talk about the tools we bring. And that's what we offer, too, to law enforcement here, is don't take our word for it. We'll put you in touch directly with those who've worked with us, who've seen the good, bad, and the ugly up close, who know what it's like to work with an outside organization such as OUR, so that we can go and protect our kids in this country, here in the United States, where there also is a great need.
It's a topic that is difficult for people. Nobody wants to talk about children being raped.
The problem is so vast that we cannot sit by and just hope that the government can handle it all.
We are rescuing kids and putting traffickers away here in the United States.
We've partnered with OUR on investigations having to do with human trafficking and people who sell children or traffic or buy children.
The truth is, we're here working, sometimes more here than overseas.
Operation Underground Railroad has a more global impact and can provide resources to us.
What we're doing here at OUR is trying to prevent the spread of these horrific images and videos online.
They're coming to rape children. I mean, there's no other way to say it.
These criminal elements here in the United States are more advanced because the law enforcement here is more advanced.
There are limited resources for a lot of smaller counties like mine.
Right now, my task force, it's me and another detective.
Imperial County is one of the poorest counties in the United States.
We need help to be able to work these type of cases.
OUR provides some of the resources that are needed.
We don't charge them. We have experts at knowing how to infiltrate the dark web, infiltrate the places on the internet where kids are being exploited here in the United States.
This is a problem everywhere, and we need resources dedicated to this.
We were training them how to use some of this technology to demask the illicit activity done by these bad guys.
We need additional tools, and OUR is providing additional tools and expertise.
It's a private-public partnership. We do not operate outside of the authority or jurisdiction of the agency with whom we are working.
OUR basically works in a collaborative way with our investigators, and the investigators call the shots.
OUR has been a great asset for the type of operations that we're doing now on the internet.
Working with OUR has given us an opportunity to proactively work on saving children before they're violated.
We have arrested people based upon the training that OUR has given us here.
Just in the last couple of months, we have seen close to 30 be arrested in multiple different jurisdictions. We've had great success, which is why we're getting invitations all over the United States to come in and replicate this model.
Thank God for this, because somebody needed to do something about it.
The chances are not in your favor of getting away with distributing child pornography and raping a child and putting the video up online. We will catch you. Law enforcement will catch you. We'll be right there with them.
Three different U.S. states, we've assisted in the arrest of about 100 suspected pedophiles. Some of them have already been convicted, but we'll say 100 suspected. And this from all walks of life: a former Marine, a city planning commissioner, the umpire for a 12-year-old girls' softball league. I mean, who answered ads and said, yes, I will come to this hotel, to what they thought was to have sex with a 9-year-old girl and a 14-year-old girl. So this exists everywhere. But what's important, I hope you picked out from the Imperial Valley County, investigators call the shots. Your experts, your law enforcement, your elected, commissioned, trained officials call the shots. We do not call the shots. We do not cross that line between police and prosecutor and district attorney. We are here simply to provide resources. And that's what we would love to do, is to throw out, is to offer up these resources. If you'll indulge me for 5 more minutes, I want to play a final video set to a song that's popular from just about a year ago. And it gives a montage of most of the operations we've done, some of the footage you've already seen. But hopefully it gives you an idea of just the power that is there behind this organization, that when multiplied in conjunction with all the other amazing organizations that are out there fighting this horrific crime, can do so much. And I hope you realize that there's something that everyone can do, whether it's just raise awareness as we started out. This isn't prostitution, this is trafficking. If you can send funding, we obviously would love that. Our website, ourrescue.org, OURrescue.org. We had some cards and some bracelets out front. If you can't send funding, please send prayers. If you don't pray, please send well wishes. We need this to go out and partner with other groups to be this, once again, force multiplier, to do more than any one individual or one organization or one city or one state or country can do. And it may sound corny, but our philosophy is the parable of the starfish, and everyone knows that, right? A beach covered with starfish as it approached noon, and this boy's frantically throwing starfish out into the ocean. And this old man walks up and says, "Boy, what are you doing?" He says, "I've got to throw these starfish back because in another hour the sun will be fully up and they'll die. I've got to save them." And the man says, "Do you see there are thousands and thousands and thousands of starfish on the beach? You can't make a difference." And the little boy reached down and he picked up a starfish and he threw it as far as he could out into the ocean, and he said, "I made a difference to that one." And we've made a difference to children, and we're going to continue to do it. And I'm so very grateful for you coming tonight. After this last video, I will be here for as long as you would like. And I know we have a microphone for questions and answers. I also would love discussion. You are the locals. You know a little bit more about this area. What work is being done? What problems are out there? How can we help? Also, give kudos to those who are in attendance here tonight who are already doing great things. There is so much we can do together, and I thank you for the opportunity to play this last video.